The AgEmerge Podcast is brought to you by Ag Solutions Network. I'm your host, Monte Bottens. Join me as leaders in soil health, research, and ag tech share their perspectives and enable you to farm outside the box.
Are you ready to immerse yourself in the future of soil health? Don't miss your chance to register for the 2025 Big Soil Health Event, happening December 8th and 9th in Cedar Falls, Iowa, hosted by Soil Region. This event is all about farmer-first education, training, and networking to boost soil health, improve your quality of life, and maximize your ROI. After the event, they'll stick with you every step of the way through consulting and community support. Don't wait. Join us for inspiring speakers and an incredible community of attendees that will keep you learning and growing. Head over to www.agsoilregion.com to register now. We can't wait to see you there.
Okay. Now we have arrived at Liz's favorite section. And we did this because if we started here, she probably would have done this section and then she would have ran out the door to the airport. Yeah. So that's why we held it back till now. So soil health, this is what it's all about. And if you haven't heard that through everything we've talked about today and microbes driving release, you need to rewatch everything. But let's talk about this. On this sample here, we're on Schist North, 50-1 soil respiration, carbon dioxide to carbon, or 50.1, sorry.
Yeah.
Talk about this and what this means.
So that means, I would like to see that number higher, but I can tell you why it's not based on the extractable organic carbon.
Okay.
Okay. So
walk us. I'm probably sorry to interrupt.
No, it's
start
fine.
Where you want to start.
So we have soil respiration of 50.
Mm-hmm.
Organic carbon in part per million, that's water soluble organic carbon, is 85.
Okay.
I like to see that number closer to 200.
Okay.
And respiration probably over 100.
Okay.
We've seen numbers that are a lot higher than that, but what's good about this result is we have this MAC percent. So that's microbially active carbon percent. And it's basically a measure of how much your microbes like that food source in the soil. So sometimes we'll see soils where there's plenty of that water extractable organic carbon,
okay,
but the respiration is really, really low. That percent MAC number is going to be really, really low as well, 20% or something like that.
So you might run into a soil that has 200 part per million, water WEOC. And then, but maybe 20% of that is interesting to a microbe. So that's like,
right.
It's like going to a vegan going to an all meat buffet.
Right.
Just don't really care for that.
That, and it could also be that food source is available, but your soil's compacted. And so the microbes can't breathe, they can't get water, and they can't be active. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have the space.
And like you said, the subaquatic environment. We have to think that these microbes live on water films on soil aggregates. So if there's no water film and there's no soil aggregate and there's no oxygen, it don't matter what your food source is.
Right.
They can't eat it because they can't live.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. And when we see results like that, where we believe that the soil might be compacted or affected that way, then we'll start to dig more into calcium magnesium ratios or talking to the farmer about, what happens here. I've seen two soils just across the road managed by the same person. So they were doing a lot of the same things. But the soil on the south of the road was heavily compacted. It had all the food source in there, but the microbial activity was low. And it was because it had historically had so much equipment moved across it that it was just completely collapsed.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there's different ways to remedy that, but I won't go into that. But
right. But it could be a compaction issue. It could be a calcium magnesium. It could be excess sodium, excess potassium. All both cause dispersion.
That phosphorus.
Okay. There's a new one. How would excess phosphorus cause a reduction in your soil health metrics?
So I don't know how it works that way or why.
But you've seen it.
I've seen it. And I'm guessing here, microbes have a carbon to nitrogen to phosphorus ratio of 100 to 10 to 1. So let's say that phosphorus number is way high. Like if you're in a dairy situation where you're applying and you get, I've seen over 450 pounds per acre.
Yeah.
And that microbial.
And hog manure would be a big one too.
Yeah.
Because hog manure typically has higher phosphorus and nitrogen, or organic systems, right?
Sure.
That's the problem. We're applying a lot of manure in organic system to get the nitrogen.
Right.
We're over applying the phosphorus need.
Right.
Okay.
And that's another reason to really test your
Manure. Okay. So 100 to 10 to 1, carbon and nitrogen to phosphorus.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty easy to remember, actually.
Yeah.
I can remember that.
That's
okay.
one of the only numbers I know.
So when you get so when you get the phosphorus high, then you're again back on getting rid of your precious carbon.
Right, and throwing everything out of balance.
Yeah.
It's all about balance.
It'd be easier if it was just numbers.
I know.
Tell me what to buy. That's what every farmer wants to know.
Right.
Okay, so back to the MAC.
Mm-hmm.
Remind us again what that is, because I've already forgotten.
Okay, it's microbially active carbon.
Okay.
And
so
it's
59% of the organic is microbially active.
Right.
Got it.
Right. And it's a calculation taken from soil respiration and the water extractable organic carbon.
Okay. Got
And
it.
I think organic matter as well. I can't remember the exact calculation. But when I've seen some soils that go well above 100%.
Above. Okay.
And that is when usually in a long-term regenerative system, and the growers will notice that their residue disappears super fast.
I know.
Yeah. So there's a balance in there again.
So if you're let's talk to that grower that has, I have that problem.
Mm-hmm.
I have, on typically we're corn soybean rotation. That's what our markets demand, and that's what I'm doing. So I'm one of the problems. But the second year, by 1st of July, that floor is bare, even with like rye that have grown out this tall, with 220 bushel corn residue from the previous year. It's gone. Yeah. And actually our earthworms reach up and grab the lower leaves of the corn and pull it into their hole. I mean, they're aggressive critters.
Awesome.
So what are we doing wrong there? What is our opportunity to move forward?
Yeah. Well, you're not doing anything wrong. You've made a really healthy biological system.
But I hate seeing that bare surface.
Yeah.
I mean, we fed it all this carbon and we just can't keep up. And I'm not alone. I know there are several other producers and friends of yours that have the same problem. So what's their next right step to be doing?
Just going to have to figure out different rotations to bring more carbon in. I think.
So going to interjecting a wheat rotation as an example. So we have a lot of, and we want to bale off the straw or burn it off, right?
No.
Oh.
You want to keep the carbon on the soil.
Okay, so we do that, and then that gives us, so we extend our growing season backwards. Mm-hmm. So we're in March of this year, we've had kind of a warm season. Right now, we're growing cover crops and we're growing small grains, so we're capturing carbon today.
Right.
Where a corn-soybean rotation with no cover crops is capturing how much carbon today?
0.
Right, so we're getting that in, and we're going to accumulate a lot of biomass, and we're going to have a lot of high carbon to nitrogen ratio biomass in that wheat stubble, right? 80,
right.
100 to 1,
right?
Roughly.
I can't remember. Yeah, 80.
A lot.
Yeah, a lot.
So, and we spread that out evenly on the soil, and then we come back in and we burn it off, we bale it, and we plow it. No, okay, we don't do any of that. We direct seed in.
Burn it off from all things.
So we direct seed in a high carbon and nitrogen ratio summer cover crops. So some sorghums and now that carbon, do you want that easily digestible carbon, or do you want that more persistent carbon on those summer covers?
I think persistent, if you're trying to raise your seed to N ratio and
so if you're trying to
the residue on the surface.
So feeding a cow would be a different plan than feeding soil carbon. You want them to have something that's more persistent?
I think you can have a good balance between the two. I mean, first and foremost, you need to put what's out there for your livestock.
Correct. If you're grazing livestock.
If that's what you're doing.
But if you're not grazing livestock, maybe the BMR forage sorghum is not the most ideal for accumulating carbon.
Right. And
you want something that's more lignified, more straw-y.
And it's going to depend on where you live. So
sure, what you can grow and those kind of things. But there's also value in the diversity too, because that is the only time in like a 3 cycle, kind of what Dave Brandt pioneered, the corn, bean, wheat with the summer covers. That's where you have an opportunity to really introduce diversity to create your resilience for your subsequent corn and bean crops that you were mentioning in the previous video. You don't just have to say right. I mean,
but you're saying it.
I'm preaching it.
Preaching, man.
Preaching to the choir. So I think back in this case, what Kim's doing, what does she need to be looking at then, you think, in cover crops? So right now she's got wheat in the ground. And she's going to come after that with a high diversity cover crop, and she's going to try to beg, borrow, plead, or steal 4-legged critters to come in there and convert that for her. What else does she need to be looking at on with these numbers? You see, basically she needs to be focused on getting her soil, get her respiration up, and get her organic carbon up.
Increase the water extractable organic carbon.
Okay.
In whichever way you possibly can. And I don't know what was on this field before.
This would have been soybeans.
Okay.
And then go into wheat.
Okay.
Shout, Kim, from the other room if that's wrong. Nope, she says we're correct. Okay.
So soybeans and wheat.
Yep.
So I would imagine if you went out and took a sample. Wait, I don't know what your soil temps are right now, but let's say in a month from now.
Once it hits, what's your ideal soil temp?
Like 50 degrees.
50 degrees. There you go.
Yes.
Yeah, 50 degrees Celsius. That'd be a little...
Well, yeah, I know. Yeah. But you never know what people are going to think.
Okay.
I have seen a lot of really smart stuff happen. Okay. And I mean, I'm guilty of it too. But...
Oh, boy. Okay.
So I would imagine this carbon to nitrogen ratio on this soil is about a 12, which is great. I would imagine, though, after having the wheat crop growing all winter long and then into the spring as the soil warms up, you'll probably have more organic carbon. So these samples were taken, 628.
Right.
So there was soybean crop growing.
Soybean crop growing, but not real big by then. You would have had probably a fair amount of corn fodder out there in the field.
Okay. So then as I'm going to use my hands to make a graph.
Okay.
As your soil warms up from in the spring, your microbial respiration is going to move up. It's going to start using this water extractable organic carbon portion to keep its population going.
Okay.
At that time, if your plants are small or not up yet, you're going to get a big dip.
Because
not a big dip, but a dip.
It's burnt through its weoc.
It's burnt through the stuff that was there before.
Okay.
As your plant grows and starts pumping out more plant root exudates and sugars, that weoc number is going to come up. The respiration will come up. So you really have to look at when the sample was taken, what was growing then, so that you can look at these numbers and make sense of maybe why respiration's low or why you don't have as much water extractable organic carbon as you think you might need at that time. I have growers that take samples like right after rye pops up in the fall, and their respiration will be lower, weoc can be lower. They'll come back in the spring after the rye's shooting up taller and everything's warming up, everybody's happy, and water extractable organic carbon numbers come up and respiration as well. So it really depends on when you sample, and when you decide to sample is going to be dependent upon your goals on your farm.
So I think I almost I'm going to throw this out there and you tell me if I'm completely wrong, but I'm going to bust a myth. We've always said that, if you sample in the fall, you need to always sample in the fall. If you sample in the spring, you need to sample in the spring. That's great for I'm putting pounds of fertilizer out on the field in that mentality, okay? But this mentality of this soil test requires a different thought process. You're trying to see and manage your microbial community for your crop. You really want to take these samples at times that you're going to make a decision to support that microbial community for your crop.
Yes.
So therefore, the 50-degree threshold is what we want, but we also want a certain, what is the decision we're going to make as a result of this soil test? In other words, Are we going to plant a cover crop cocktail? Are we going to side dress nitrogen? Are we going to foliar feed a potassium? We want to time those to our management decision. Is that
Right.
is that? And just forget this. I've always done it every fall, every 2 years. Forget that crap,
Yeah.
right? Is that
Well,
or
there are some times where that's okay.
Okay.
So let's say you don't want to spend a whole bunch on soil testing. You don't have time to get out there. You don't have an agronomist. You got to go pull samples yourself. And we all know farmers are busy. If you want to monitor your progress year over year as you're making practice changes, I do recommend taking a sample at the same time of year. And same time means same temperature and moisture conditions,
not calendar date?
not calendar date.
Okay.
You want to take it, if you're doing it in April, you want to take it around the same time.
Sure.
But I know it's been a lot warmer winter here than previously. It was up in Minnesota as well. So it's going to be a completely different date than it would have been last year when there was a whole bunch of snow on the ground.
Right.
Right.
So yeah, this year's March 1 might be last year's May 1.
Right.
But microbes don't care. They care about moisture and they care about temperature.
Right.
So that's why we want to.
They don't have little calendars in their pocket.
You would think they would advance to a
I
little
know.
further than that. Anyway, so that's really, really key. And then if you want to kind of see those management, are you looking at a composite test then of the field?
Yes.
Or essentially you sample. The sample methodology should be based on your farming capabilities, right? So if you're
Right.
treating the whole field as a whole field, likely a composite sample. The problem with composites is you got to make sure that you're not favoring one type of soil to another. It has to be representative of that.
Right.
Any particular, if we got row crops out there, where should we sample that? In the row, beside the row, in the center? There's a $1 million argument that people have.
All right. So let's say you have a crop growing or a cover crop, and you sampled right near the roots for everything. You're going to get a really good idea of what's happening right there in that root zone. If let's say you had a cover crop growing and you did that, but you're going to come in and do, what was the center just yesterday? 15-inch on wheat. Was that it?
Yeah.
Okay. 15-inch wheat. That's a little different than if you're going into like a 30-inch row. You're going to want to know what the whole field is doing, because you're going to be treating that whole field, not just where those plants were previously growing. So let's say you sample while you have corn growing, you probably want to take some 2 inches away from a plant in between rows. You could do a couple in row. When I map fields, I map them by soil type and slope. So I'm just trying to get a good representation of what the soil types are. If 50% is one soil type, 50% is another soil type, I'll put 5 subsamples in half and 5 subsamples in the other. For a lot of purposes, like if we have really big fields, say in Kansas, or I don't know what y'all's average field size is up here, we can do 100 acres per composite, because you're treating that field the whole entire the same way.
Right.
If you're in a completely different cropping system, so we deal with a lot of like vegetable people or specialty crops, specialty grains that may be only on 30 acres. We want to measure that 30 acres composite itself, but you still need to take probably about 10 cores per field and composite it, so you have enough sample to send to the laboratory.
Right. So each pull is a subsample.
Right.
So you got enough total pounds, to send in. Normally it's 10 to 12 cores to get a 1 pound bag. So,
right.
It's, I think the key is like you were saying, is if you're trying to identify a problem, you want to sample an area tightly. But if you're identifying the management, to the degree that you can manage is to the degree that you should sample. So,
right.
So we talked about timing, location, sample.
So what about if you're precision applying?
What if you're precision applying? So
you don't want to run a $55 test on 2.5 acre grids. Right.
Well, you can. It's a great for.
You sure can if you want to.
Yes.
But I will tell you that the lab would probably be upset if you sent them that many tests at one time.
There's a reason why it costs $50.
Right. Well, you get a lot of information.
Mm-hmm.
So we have some growers that are doing that. They'll run a standard test on 2.5 acre grids, and then we can adjust with a composite Haney test to say, okay, you can on average reduce your nitrogen by this much based on the recommendations you were getting on your grids. So you still have your map. You're just adjusting those numbers based on the Haney test to make it more realistic of what's plant available.
I don't know what the obsession is with 2.5 acre grids.
I don't know.
They started back with the 086 computer processor, because that's all with ag chem. That's all they could generate was squares, and nothing could do curves in old time, and it just stuck. And there's research that I think Daryl Norton did and some others did that shows there's just as much variance within something the size of this table as there is within 1 acre or 2.5 or 5 or 10. It's just the variation in soil is astounding. So your detail is just not necessary. If you're not managing by that 2.5 acre grid, well, why bother?
Right.
And maybe with the exception of lime or sulfur for pH decreasing, do it just a pH test on zones and then use this for it to really know what's going on. You can have high definition of bad information, and who cares, right?
Yeah, I mean,
great. I know a lot of nothing about a lot.
Yeah.
Or do you want to know in depth about the whole
system?
Right. So I think that's grid testing has been a great way to sell fertilizer, and it's just.
And to say we're reducing fertilizer?
Yeah, so they can sell the $7 fee to process your samples that takes them 2 cents to do. So I think we've been sold a bill of goods, and I'll say that. I'm not putting in, I'll take full responsibility for that, but I don't think a lot of things that we do is just completely unnecessary. Okay, back up the truck here. Soil health, we made it to MAC. You got the carbon-nitrogen ratio, and that depending on time of year. SHC, so happy carbon. Is that what that is?
Yeah.
What is SHC?
So SHC is the soil health calculation.
Oh, my goodness. Okay.
Yes. And it takes into account many of the factors in the test.
Okay.
I don't off the top of my head remember what the calculation is. A 7 is pretty good, above a 7.
Okay.
And Kim here has a 7.44, I think.
Well, she is above good.
She is above average.
Yes, yeah.
For sure. Exceptional.
And getting gooder every day.
Yes. The only time I really look at the soil health calculation is to see if it's improving over time. So that would be one of those situations where we would want to test around the same time of year.
Gotcha.
It's going to depend on where you're at. A lot of the Western samples are going to have a lower soil health calculation. You're arid and sandy and salty and your irrigation water sucks, then all that. But if you're doing things, it should improve slowly over time.
Okay. So that's just a metric for that feedback.
Right.
Cover crop suggestion, 50% legume, 50% grass. Okay, hold on. What does this mean? And why did it generate that and those kind of things?
Okay. So there's a cover crop suggestion. This says 50% legume, 50% grass. Keep in mind the 50% legumes includes brassicas.
Okay.
It's just not said on here. And all of that is based off of this carbon and nitrogen ratio that's under water extract, soil health water extract. So between 12 and 15 is really good. Microbes have a C to N ratio, depending on who you ask, of around 15 to 1.
Okay.
So we're trying to keep the soil in balance for the microbes. And that's why it's a 50-50 recommendation.
So if you put out 50 pounds of cereal rye, you want to put out 50 pounds of legume?
No.
Oh, okay. It's within their standard seeding rate. So if a 5-pound seeding rate was normal of clover, we'd want to put out 2.5 pounds of that, and we'd want to put out, corresponding maybe 30 pounds of a cereal grain. to have
keeping
that
it
balance.
keeping that carbon, and it's going to depend on what kind of, if you're putting in cereal rye versus triticale versus
True.
oats, and I mean, there's calculators out there. I'm not sure if green cover seed has that on theirs, but I've seen somewhere, I know, where it's got the carbon to nitrogen ratio
Sure.
of everything.
And it also matters the termination date on those grasses, because as the grasses
Right.
get more mature, typically their carbon to nitrogen ratio increases.
Right.
So
your recommendation for Minnesota, where your rye doesn't get very tall before it's time to plant, even though it's still doing great things, it's not going to have as high a seed to N ratio as your cereal rye or what's happening on Rick Clark's place.
Right.
Or
if your intention is to terminate your cereal rye when it's 6 inches tall, the addition of legume probably really isn't that necessary, because cereal rye at that tall is 20-1 anyway.
Right.
So that's just those kind of things to keep in mind. That's just a general thing. And I thought include the brassicas in the legumes, because essentially they're saying we want half of the plants to be, low carbon and nitrogen ratio, and we want half the plants to be high. So,
correct.
Okay. Well, we're back, and we've been through almost all the elements of the Haney test, and want to go to the very bottom, which is the recommendations. Now, most farmers, believe it or not, they're going to skip all this great stuff that you just went through with us and go right to the bottom. Just the facts, ma'am, just the facts. I want to ignore all the others. So first off, it's extraordinarily important to know how that soil test works in order to understand what's going on with your soil, right? The recommendations is great. It's a snapshot in time, but it's not the reason for the test. Is that a fair way to say that?
Actually, the test was developed for fertility recommendations in the first place.
But for the nitrogen, yes.
But now that it's out there and we've been doing this for many, many years, the soil health part's important as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to go through Kim's sample, and I think there's some great things. Remember, again, this was taken in June of the previous year. We're in March now. And going through winter wheat, a couple different yield goals. You can see it goes across with, we're looking at a past crop credit of 40 for soybeans. Now that's always up in the air, how much of a nitrogen credit we take for soybeans. That can always be subjective. So depending on your experience and those kind of things, insert there. And plus, through using this test, it shows we have 37.2 pounds available, from the soil, or will be supplied from the soil. But knowing that, then on to the right here, it says recommending for a 70 bushel goal, about 45 units of nitrogen. Okay, so that's taking everything into account, a little bit of applied phosphorus, a little bit of potassium and sulfur. So that's how that looks there, is we've taken a more, and I said that wrong earlier, and I thank you for correcting me. This is a more intensive way to know the nutrients that are available for the plant. Okay. And that's a great way to do it. And then obviously a higher yield goal, showing a little more need for nitrogen and such. But you brought this up earlier. This is really important to understand the context in which the soil test was taken. So really needs to resample at this moment in time for that nitrogen decision.
Yes,
because that could have changed for a top dress. Yes.
It certainly has changed, I'm sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So just remember that it's a snapshot in time, and it goes from there. Anything else to cover I know fertility recommendations can vary a lot by location and those kind of things, but it's kind of somewhat straightforward, and you have to apply it to your own situation. Yeah.
And phosphorus and potassium, I think the laboratory takes into account the movement and nitrogen as well. But when at USDA, when Rick was making fertility recs, he was doing just a straight subtraction off of what the crop needed for that goal. At Region Ag Lab and probably most other labs, they have some
factor of some kind.
Some different algorithms. And Lance has explained to me the phosphorus one several times, and it hasn't stuck in my brain yet. But and I think a lot of farmers I know are like, I'm just going to put this much nitrogen out, period. And so a lot of them will freak out if they can cut it back by 37 pounds or 40 pounds. So I tell them to do whatever they can do to sleep at night.
Or try it.
Try it on
Do
a
your
strip.
standard, leave a strip this way and compare.
That was one other slide I was going to give you. Yes. So we did that on the farm with ran the standard test in North Carolina.
Mhm.
So Malic, no nitrogen.
Mhm.
They don't run nitrogen at all there. And then the Haney test and applied the fertility according to those recommendations. And there was a significant yield bump from using the Haney test.
Mhm.
And that was mostly because of phosphorus.
Right. And that was, I think was that a soybean field, if I remember right?
Yes.
And so that made a big difference in just showing that understanding better what the microbial available phosphorus is versus, an arbitrary extraction, what that is. So, all right. So fertility recommendations, don't need to dive into that a whole lot, but wanted to move on to the fun part, PLFA.
Okay.
Phospholipid fatty acid, something
Yeah.
like that. Did I get that right?
That's right.
Wow. But PLFA is easier to spell.
Yes.
Okay. So
Quite a bit.
we'll use that.
But you wouldn't believe how many times I've done it. I say PFLA. Everybody says it wrong, but we all know what we're talking about.
LFPA.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. So talk to us a little bit about this analysis, what it is, how it works, and kind of overview of why that matters.
So all microbes have like a lipid layer, and somehow they digest them and can tell in general what is bacteria, what's fungi, gram positive, gram negative, get some different readings on the microbes that are in the soil.
So this isn't genetic sequencing,
No.
but this is just roughly category groups of what's going on.
Right,
out there.
right.
Okay.
And there are people that do metagenomic stuff, but we need to keep in mind when we use these kinds of tests to know that we're not even aware of the majority of species that are in the soil. We don't really know.
And over time, we've kind of learned that
We know less.
than what we thought we did.
Right, right.
Is that great to learn that you know less?
It happens every day. I'm used to it, man.
Well, let's talk about what we don't know about Kim's farm here.
Okay.
So
okay.
I don't know if you got a copy of that in front of you. I can
Yes.
share mine.
I do.
Okay. So I'm looking at which one you want to start on, north or south?
North.
North. All right. So total biomass. What does that mean? PLFA nanograms per gram of soil.
Right.
Is that right?
Right. And so they have rankings on these, but I'd say a value of around 2,000 is average, and this is reaching at 684.
Okay. So we're below average here.
Yes.
There's room to grow.
There's room to grow.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
For sure.
So that's just telling you of by total biomass. So does that mean like all carbon out there, or what is
So
that?
total biomass is all of your bacteria and fungi.
Okay.
Okay. Now that doesn't mean that they're all active. That's a lot of that could be dead biomass,
Okay.
I think.
So what it's okay. So roughly whatever percentage of the biomass, I'm sure that can be put into percentage with lots of decimals, but 684 means that there's a very small portion of that biomass is alive and active.
well, no, that's the total biomass.
Oh, total biomass.
Would
Okay.
you want to know if you want to know the activity, you have to do the respiration,
Okay. Gotcha.
and they're not a one-to-one relationship when you graph them,
Okay.
because and we can use these as an example, the north and south field.
Okay. Let's
Yeah.
do that.
So the south field has a total biomass of 229,
Oh, so it's
which
even
is quite a bit
less
lower.
gooder. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
However, that field has higher respiration than the field that has more biomass.
Okay. So now we're back to the
So now we're back to the Haney
Haney
test.
test. Yes.
Mhm. So the north field that has the 600 and something biomass, 684, has a respiration value of 50.
50.1 there.
Mhm.
Yep.
The one with the lower biomass has a respiration value of 63.6.
Now hold the phone. What's going on there?
Right. So that's when you need to go out in the field and look
Okay.
and get your shovel, like your great sticker that you gave me.
Okay.
Yeah. Get your shovel out and look in there and see what's going on. You can also look at some of the other things. Like, I don't see anything remarkable in the other results.
On the PLFA result.
I mean, on the Haney test results, they explain the complete difference.
Okay.
The pHs are different.
That is significant difference in pH, the 7.2 versus 5.9.
Right.
Okay.
What did I just
That's a big difference. So,
yeah. And I don't understand why that is, but.
So in that, okay, when you get a result like that, then what would you do to try to figure out what's causing that difference? If you really don't know the history, you can't really figure anything out.
My first front of attack is to talk to the grower and see if there are any different practices on that. What the long-term history is. They might be completely different.
Like one could have been in pasture for a long time.
Right.
Could have been a feedlot. One could have been a different rotation.
Right. Or traditionally
this is where we spread the manure all the time.
Right.
Because it's closest to the barn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Second thing is taking a shovel out there.
And just seeing
it and looking at it. Yeah, a penetrometer or something like that. Go out there. I think the best thing that a grower can do is learn how to run an infiltration test in the field. That's my favorite in-field test.
Very good. So we'll do the down and dirty infiltration test. You can go to Lowe's, get yourself a 6-inch PVC connector, drive it into the ground about halfway, right to the little lip that's in the middle of it. Then you go and you get yourself your standard 16-ounce water bottle. You take it off and you throw out about an ounce.
Yeah.
Pour it in, time how long it takes to soak in.
Right.
Because that's the equivalent to 1-inch rainfall.
Right. And if you're under very dry conditions when you do it, pour a whole bottle of water on it first and let it infiltrate and then run the infiltration test.
Okay. Because that's cheating.
Yeah.
What you're saying.
A little bit. Yeah.
Gotcha. Because you might have like some macro cracks or something that just lets it fall.
Right. And you'll see the bubbles come up. And
gotcha.
Yeah.
So you're trying to understand how does it function in not a saturated, but in a moist condition.
A more optimal condition.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was easy.
Yeah.
Right. And it's kind of fun to do something different.
I think so.
So that's anything else you'd look at?
So
if your shadow and your shovel in the field, plus your
right.
We're going to have to modify the sticker to say you take your infiltration ring with you.
Right.
Let's take a quick break and hear from our national sales manager at ASN, Zach Neppel.
The AgEmerge Podcast is brought to you by Ag Solutions Network. At ASN, we support farmers with top quality crop nutrition products and soil health practices. Our Power to Grow system delivers tailored nutrition to boost plant health and improve soil function, ensuring higher yields and sustainable growth. From seed to harvest, trust ASN to feed your crops and your bottom line. Let's farm better together. Visit agsolutionsnetwork.com to learn more.
Functional group diversity.
Okay. Now we're back on the PLFA.
We're back on PLFA, right under total biomass. I was told anything over like 1.2 is good.
Okay.
So basically that's just a measure of how diverse your microbes are in the soil. And as we've been saying this whole entire time, we want more and more diversity.
So that diversity comes from bacteria, singular cellular organisms, fungi, multicellular, and protozoa. And who's undifferentiated?
That's all the ones we don't know.
Yeah. So we don't know 48% in this example.
Right.
Well,
and that's normal.
42%.
And that's normal. And that's just, as science goes on, maybe we'll get more and more. But
so that the up at the top, that 1 point, I'm looking on north, the 1.507, that's just a summary of what we have.
Of the diverse. Right.
So now break it down.
So then under community breakdown, there's total bacteria, gram positive, gram negative. I don't know enough about that to speak about it. What I look at is the total fungi, arbuscular, mycorrhizal versus saprophytic. We'd like to get that closer to 1-to-1.
Okay. So a little low on AMF.
Right.
Or a little high on saprophytic. Just depends.
Yeah, depends on how. Well, so the saprophytic fungi are breaking things down, and then your AMF is your nutrient transport.
Gotcha. So we've got.
So you need both of those.
Correct. And in this case, the saprophytic, that's going to be primarily doing the heavy lifting on residue breakdown. And again, this could be a function of the time it was taken. So in June, we're working on the root systems from the previous corn plant, and a lot of corn residues that are out there. If you take it in a area where there's less, do you see that change over time, or does that remain relatively constant?
It's going to change over time.
Okay.
And it's also going to change with temperature. We have people running PLFAs in the winter.
Cool. And
all the numbers just dive.
Right.
Yeah.
Nothing's alive.
Nothing's.
They all went to Florida.
Yes, they are all on vacation.
Okay. Yeah. So that arbuscular mycorrhiza, AMF, you've probably heard of it. A lot of people sell it for inoculation and such. Saprophytic fungi, the gram-negative, gram-positive, and actinomycetes are a part of the gram-positive group. They're kind of weird, right? They're not really they don't act like bacteria. They don't act like fungi. They're just kind of their own thing.
Yeah, they're like key species.
They do some amazing things.
Yeah.
That's what gives us that earthy smell, right? It's that you see it. It's typically that kind of white mycelia stuff in the soil. It's attaching to residue, or you'll see it around roots. Sometimes it attaches to roots, and kind of easy to identify. What is that? Is that normal from what you've seen before, as far as percent of the biomass? 8.49, 10.10. What do we got over here on this one?
67.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so 19. I'd say that's
as a percentage. Yeah. What else?
Protozoa.
Yes, let's talk about that.
We want protozoa. And
Kim, you scored a 0 on this. This is
so a lot of people do.
Okay, so Kim, don't feel bad,
especially when you're just starting out.
Okay.
Yes.
So talk to us about protozoa.
So they're the key breakdown people in the soil, and we want protozoa in there. As the soil gets healthier, your protozoa numbers are going to go up. They're not going to be huge. Like I have another example in front of me where it's 0.07%. But we're just happy when we see them, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. The other example I have is actually a check strip versus where they applied some product, and the product increased the protozoa.
Is that a protozoa food source, or is that a protozoa essentially inoculum?
So it wasn't an inoculum, and I don't know why it improved it.
Okay.
This stuff,
but it did.
This product does some really interesting stuff that, we don't need to go into, but I don't know why.
Okay.
But it did. I've seen some products that do improve that ratio or improve the amount of protozoa in the soil. Mm-hmm. So that's another thing. I was trying to stress this the other day when I was speaking to some farmers, is that, and we mentioned it briefly before, but doing a check strip, doing a trial on your own farm, because we can sit here and throw these numbers out at you, but unless you're seeing the differences with your management practices, you really want to prove it to yourself, whether something's working or not, basically.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah.
What else should we be looking at when we request a PLFA test to understand? And anything else in this community breakdown, or that kind of gives you this sample of what's going on, and maybe the ratios on the right's more of explains things? Yeah.
So the ratios, the one that I look at is the fungal to bacterial ratio. So a 0.25 is actually a 1-to-1 relationship, and that's really good.
Okay.
Yes. So this soil, I mean, based on all of these results together, what I would say is that the potential is there. We just need to figure out, is it compacted, and to somehow get some more carbon in the soil to pump up these communities.
So the ratios are right. We're just lacking in quantity.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And in the protozoa bacteria, again, that was all bacteria in the sample. Gram positive to gram negative, a lot of that has to do, I think, certain pathogens are more likely to be gram negative versus beneficials. I can't remember.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Good.
Do that.
There you go.
I'll research it and you can call me.
We'll get back to you. There you go. Stress indicators. Okay. What is this? SAT and unsat. So these are Saturday functioning microbes did not
and
on
then
Saturdays?
the rest of the week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what does that mean? Saturated and unsaturated?
I really don't know the answers to that. Yeah. I don't look at these very often. Not a lot of people run PLFAs.
Because it's not cheap.
Yes, it's $80 a sample.
And trying to get just a benchmark of what's going on there. So
right. And so, like, if you do want to run PLFAs, I do a Haney test every year and then a PLFA every 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of, and give you an idea of a snapshot in time and how things are improving.
Yeah. The other example I brought in was that product application trial, and using their product increased total biomass. It increased the protozoa. The arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi increased relative to saprophytic. So some of the basic indicators I look at, it looks like it was improving it. What was interesting is that on this one, the respiration, we couldn't pick up the difference. So PLFA can be good to show the difference. A lot of that's because if we're going out and applying a product, some of these rates are like really low. They might be doing things with the plant that we're not capturing in a soil test. So this is actually algae. And we know based on research with Dr. James White, because we measured that exact algae, it's acting as a carrier in the rhizophagy cycle, carrying nitrogen into the plant.
Okay.
And other things. So it's functioning in a way right around that root zone that's going to be different than when you pull a bulk soil sample.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And you can't pick that up maybe in the bulk soil sample on a Haney, but you can pick it up here because you're seeing the difference in the functional group.
In the functional groups. And then one thing I think I've been encouraging some people to do, especially if we think there's a whole lot of stuff going on with a product around the rhizosphere, is go pull the corn plant up, shake the dirt off around the root,
and that for the sample.
and send those for the samples. So that's a finer, detailed look of what's going on right around the plant.
So that's an interesting way to do it, because even a corn plant that can have a massive root system, I've read only intersects about 3% of the total soil volume. You know, and cotton's the worst at about 0.5%, and soybeans maybe around 1%. So, you know, we're trying to pick up things in a probe on 100% of the soil, but the magic's happening in the
that
3%,
that root zone,
adjacent to the root. So
yes,
okay, that's a good. Now it's not extraordinarily scientific of how we shake it off and stuff, but it's going to give you a better indication of how we do that.
Right. And I mean, you're not going to want to do that when you're pulling a composite sample to make fertility recs.
No,
you're going to want to do that if you're
trying to learn something.
Right. And I have growers that are making their own compost teas and applying them in different ways. And if they want to know what the difference is, well, let's pull it around the roots and instead of the bulk soil.
Great example. Anything else while we're on PLFAs?
No, not that I have.
All right. So we've been through a lot, and we thank Kim and we thank, you for bringing in these examples. So now we're going to do a little more examples from around the country.
Yeah.
So let's get to, these are some things that Liz has shared with us here. Go ahead and walk us through. We're on the same one here. Great. Walk us through what you're looking at on this, where it's at, and those kind of things.
Okay, so the first example is in Missouri, and I briefly mentioned it
earlier.
The top sample result is from a field that was just recently taken over and has not been regenerative except for a few months, I don't think it was, or a year, I can't remember. The total soil organic matter was 7.1% on that soil. The soil that they've been managing regeneratively had a soil organic matter level of 3.7%. So based on those two numbers, if that's all we were looking at, we would expect the conventional field to outperform the regenerative field.
And even if you look over to the right there on the potassium, I mean, the potassium level is much higher. I mean,
that's because they've been fertilizing
excessively high. So anyway, but I mean, it's same pH and those kind of things. Mm-hmm. If I was going to look at those two, I mean, yep, give me the one on the top.
Right.
I'll take that one.
Right. However,
there's more. Okay.
The soil respiration on the field that was just recently taken over was 50 part per million, whereas the soil respiration on the field that had cover crops, no-till, livestock integration was 160 part per million. So a whole lot more.
Over 3 times as much.
Right.
Wow.
Over 3 times as much microbial activity in that soil. And probably because it's more well aggregated.
Okay.
And also has more of that water extractable organic carbon food source because of the use of the microbes, or because of the use of the cover crops.
Mm-hmm.
Livestock integration is great for that too.
Okay. So we got half of the organic matter, but we have 3 times the amount of microbial activity going on.
Right.
Amazing.
And what's important is that the soil organic matter, and a lot of us say this when we're speaking, is it's the house that you live in.
Mm-hmm.
And then the water extractable organic portion is the refrigerator. So even though I have a whole bunch of food in my refrigerator, like broccoli and salad stuff, my kids aren't super pumped about that. So their activity is a lot lower than if it was the food that they actually wanted in there. And that's just one way to look at it.
That's a great example. So we have a smaller house, but a better stocked fridge.
A better stocked fridge.
Okay. So walk us through the rest of this here.
Mhm.
Organic carbon, 139 versus 99.
Right.
Again,
So
still higher.
more food source.
And
the MAC percent, so that's the microbially active carbon percent, is over 100% on the healthy soil. So we were talking about the perils of residue breakdown can
Mhm.
happen too fast.
Mhm.
But let's say you're in a potato situation.
True.
You want that residue to break down for
Correct.
your corn stalks. So all of it, again, is taken in context.
Mhm.
But he's still keeping residue on the surface at 100, over 100%.
And then when you look at the carbon nitrogen ratio, that's interesting too. We have
Yes.
the top one looks like we got a leaky system.
Yes. So the carbon and nitrogen ratio on the conventionally managed one is about 8.5, and on the healthy soil is about 15. And I mentioned before we want it between like 12 and 15, unless you're in a pasture system. That's completely different. At this lower carbon to nitrogen ratio, that's where we're going to start robbing the aggregates of their carbon, of their glue, and collapsing the soil, which can cause low respiration. So it's we can tell aggregation based on these results.
Yeah. So you're looking at that and saying, oh, low respiration. I got carbon nitrogen ratio. This has probably been over fertilized, or hasn't, or under carboned.
Or no more inputs of carbon.
Right.
So no manures, no livestock, no cover crops.
Or maybe tilled and burnt carbon out of the soil.
Sure.
Those kind of things.
Erosion, wind and water erosion,
Mhm.
all of those things could be a reason. Or they grew alfalfa.
Yeah. That'll work.
Yeah.
Alfalfa can't talk about that a little bit. Alfalfa, we think of great for the nitrogen credit and those kind of things, but it can be hard on the soil.
And it depends on how long you have it out there.
Mhm.
But anything over 4 years, your soil is just going to completely collapse.
Now, honestly, depends. In the West, we typically grow a lot of pure alfalfa stands, but it's pretty
Right.
common in the East to have an orchard grass mix in there.
Right, which is better. The diversity is
so that helps
better.
diversity. So you're getting more of a carbon source in there to keep your soil
Right.
stable for the future.
Right. But alfalfa is a legume. It has a low carbon to nitrogen ratio.
Mhm.
And if you just have that in there and keep it in there and keep it in there, you're going to start depleting the carbon. And it can cause your soil to collapse.
All right. SHC stands for again.
The soil health calculation
Yes.
is way lower on the conventionally managed field than on the regenerative field.
So again, that's just an overall big picture look,
Right.
on putting all these things together. And ideal world, what would you like to see on that number?
Over 7 is great,
Over 7. Okay.
but it
So
also
17's
depends.
super
17 super, and it also depends on where you're at.
Sure.
In the arid West, I would lower that number a little bit.
Okay.
I'd be happy with a lower number.
Gotcha. Because in the arid West, we're going to have phosphorus challenges. We're going to have sodium challenges
Water,
and water.
Right.
Is the water extractable carbon and those things more difficult
they'll be lower. Yeah,
because
especially in drought.
driven system too. It's a high pH typically.
Yeah, and the soils are just a completely different texture as well.
Right.
So your pH is off, your texture's not great, your aggregation probably isn't great. You might have irrigation issues, or you're not getting any rainfall.
Yep. But the land's
So
cheaper, so this is good.
Yeah, you can grow more.
There you go. All right. Next example you've got for us looks like 2 40-acre fields
Yes.
side by side.
And this is in Nebraska.
Okay.
And the topsoil or the upper results on the page
Mm-hmm.
is the field that's outlined in green.
Mm-hmm.
And the results below it is the field outlined in red, right below that to the south.
Mm-hmm.
The field on the north part has a respiration of 192
Yep.
and water extractable organic carbon numbers of 367, which is great.
Huh?
The percent MAC is 52%, which is very good. He's got a carbon to nitrogen ratio of 16. That's great.
Huh?
The soil to the south has a respiration of only 53, so almost 4 times less. The organic carbon number is about half less. And the percent MAC is 29.3%. So 2 things. One, the respiration's higher and the food source is bigger on that north field. On the south field, the respiration's lower, the food source is lower, but also the microbes, because of this percent MAC number, are not acting on that organic carbon source that is available as much as they are in the north field. And by talking to the grower,
So you got less food and less kids in the house.
we got less food, less kids.
Smaller house, smaller refrigerator, and less kids.
Yeah, and they're lazier.
Lazy kids.
The lazy kids.
Okay,
Yeah, they're just
gotcha.
eating Twinkies.
Yeah. All right. So when you see that, you're like, I think I know what that means.
Yes, and I assumed it was compaction, but I wasn't sure until I talked to the grower. They had some erosion from water, and they tried to go in and fix it, and then they had a whole lot of heavy equipment come across, and they couldn't even hardly stick the probe in the ground there. So it's super compacted.
Mhm.
So we can affect our management decisions based on these results. He needed to go in and do a repair on this field. He ripped it, planted cover crops, and is going to go no-till after that point. But sometimes
You need to reset sometimes.
you need to reset. And that's another question we get a lot. Is, what if I need to till every now and then? Then till. We don't have to be completely restrictive.
Right.
We're trying to do the best that we can to mimic nature, using the information that we have available to us, and make good management decisions based on our context and climate.
There you go. So, but that's just really interesting, side by side, showing that real difference. It points out that, hey, there's a problem. Well, then we can go and take a look at it.
Sure.
Also, on the top one, do you want to go into the 0 to 12, 12 to 24 sampling there?
Yes, so we have the top layer is the 0 to 6, and the result right underneath it that has 76 part per million CO2 is the 6 to 12 inch. What we have started doing a lot is taking a 0 to 6 and a 6 to 12 inch sample. It does lots of things for us. One is that you can get nutrient recommendations down to a foot, because hopefully your roots are going to grow down that far. 2, we can see if you're actively regenerating your soil, because your management practices are going to affect that upper 6 inches more than it will your 6 to 12 inch.
Mm-hmm.
So we can compare your management practices in your context, climate, location, everything to your baseline, which is that 6 to 12 inch layer, and see if those numbers are improving in the 0 to 6 versus 6 to 12. And tell if you're actively improving through your management.
So that's a good way to benchmark it when you're not leaving out, a designated area versus another. That's kind of for your own information to see the progress you're making.
Yeah, and the way it was developed is Rick kept telling everybody, go take the fence row versus field results and that kind of stuff.
Then there's no fences left.
There are no fences left. So what are we going to do? We're going to measure your management zone versus your baseline, see if you're actively regenerating the soil.
Very good. Anything else to go through on this example here?
I don't think so.
All right, let's head west from Missouri, or
Okay.
from Nebraska, excuse me.
Yep.
Now we're heading west to Colorado. Talk to us about Colorado here and what we have going on the available phosphorus. And this here is a really great example of what cover crops can do for you for nutrient availability.
Yes. Now, this grower doesn't grow any cover crops, but has a constant living rate in the ground because of crop rotations.
So he has a cover crop that he's growing for seed to sell the seeds. So
Yes.
yes, it's a cash crop that you and I would plant as a cover crop.
Correct. But this is a field of buckwheat. And what we did when we tested this field of buckwheat versus one that I can't remember what was growing on the other field, but where buckwheat was, we had twice as much available phosphorus. So it just proves out that these different cover crops that we use have different effects on the soil microbes. So this was feeding the rock eaters in the soil, and they were releasing phosphorus to the plants, and it was plant available, and we could see that in the results. Another thing to note is that, so this is in really dry conditions under many, many months of drought. The soil respiration was 30. That was actually a really, really good number for Western Kansas, Nebraska, Colorado, all through this last year. So when, I always recommend people take samples if you're monitoring your soil health, take it around the same time every year, but also keep in mind the context of what that year was like. Because if you suffered a drought, your respiration is going to be lower.
Because it's not a matter of what's in the fridge, it's just the kids couldn't drink.
Yeah, they had no water.
Right. So
yeah,
very, very important.
Yes.
And then, so, I mean, I think that's interesting just to see how the available, phosphorus being that high in that environment. It's, that's pretty incredible for Northeast Colorado.
Yes.
Moving on, you got to pivot now from Southeast Colorado. So tell us some examples of what's going on here and what you look at in this report.
Well, what I think is interesting is that the respiration is improved. These were taken, I think, around the same time, 117.
Yeah.
Oh, one's a year earlier.
And again,
or a couple months earlier.
0 to 6 in top and
then 6 to 12
below.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
There's 48 part per million CO2 in the 0 to 6. That's because he was able to supply some moisture to this ground.
Okay, because this under pivot irrigation.
They've got pretty good water too.
Good.
Yeah. And then the 6 to 12 is 22.5. And no matter how great your soil is, we're always going to see respiration lower in the 6 to 12 versus the 0 to 6, unless you're mold borer plowing.
Okay.
And turning everything and mixing everything together.
Okay.
You want that stratification.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody freaks out about stratification, but you want that stratification.
It's just natural.
Yeah. So in the surface, the microbes are more exposed to air and water, and they're going to be more active versus your 6 to 12 inch. Let's see what else is on here that I can look at.
So you had the respiration there, big difference.
Yep. And then, phosphorus is in the 0 to 6, 3 times as much versus the 6 to 12. So more stratification there. But when we're making fertility recs off of this, we still, because we sampled that 6 to 12, had 4.5 pounds of phosphorus available. Plus, we found an additional 18 pounds of nitrogen, 330 pounds of potassium. So you can combine those and take that into account when you're making your fertility recs, just by sampling that additional depth. Otherwise, you're kind of leaving it on the table.
And I think that's interesting because in the past with other soil samples, we really wouldn't do that. We'd do it for nitrate because it's water soluble and moves with the water. But we really wouldn't do that because we're like, it's not an oxygenated state down there. Therefore, we can't rely on what that soil test would be. So I think for Western states or anywhere, really, this is key because the H3A extract, you can have a prediction of what is actually going to be available at those deeper depths.
Yeah, and if you have plant roots
where we haven't had confidence before.
Right. And if you have plant roots growing down there, you are going to get oxygen down there around the root zone. So it's important to look at that. I mean, you're going to get a lot, sugars pumped out and microbial activity. It might be less than what you're getting in the surface, but there's still activity going on in there. Except for my yard, because it's bedrock right there. It's always fun.
Yep. Well, all soil was bedrock at one time, right?
Yeah. Right.
So anything else that we should...
Soil science is fast geology. Somebody said that the other day.
Well, yeah, anything to make geology fun, right? So that's great. So we're gonna wrap that portion of it up, and I think it'd be good to just go over a few more things on determining locations and those and some of the methodologies behind soil types and those kind of things in our next segment. So anything else on this before we move on?
Nope.
All right. Wanted to take a little time and talk about the soil survey and information that we use when we're determining where to sample and sampling by soil type or management zone. And Liz has done a lot of work on this, and it's really important to consider. I think maybe we start first with understanding how were these maps created, what time they were created, and those kind of things, and how they came up with, here's the line, and understanding that line isn't necessarily, hard, fast, and those kind of things. So share a little bit on how the soil survey came to be.
Yeah, so they were done by NRCS. They completed the soil survey. I was still working for the state like 3 or 4 years ago. But it started back in the, 50s, 40s? I can't remember exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't go back over all of that and update every single map. So they'd go out and pull soil samples. And where I live, they pulled them around, I think, early 60s. And to get the organic matter, they ran the Walkley-Black method, which is an outdated method nobody uses anymore. So it's not comparable really to what is there now. The other thing to note is that from the 60s to now, where I live, people have been under constant tillage. So those results are going to be completely different than what was there in the 60s. It still gives us a general idea, and it's the best we have available right now, or I have available to me, I should say, to use to delineate where to take soil samples and get a good representative sample, but it's not the end-all be-all, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And those lines can sometimes, depending on how the plane took the photos, because these weren't in the days of satellite imaging, right? It was flyover photos, and how they're drawn on there can have, georectification issues. So it's a matter of making sure they're in the right spot. And just because there's a line in a certain space doesn't mean that soil type changes pronto.
Right.
It's a gradual transition. There can be sand streaks through a field or that kind of thing that's definitely delineated, but these are typically drawn because so much is driven by slope in a soil test. You might share about how you look at slope in comparison and to know where those changes are.
Yeah, so the way that a field is going to function at the top of a hill is going to be completely different than in a valley. The soil is going to be completely different, and it's going to change as it goes along that slope. Mm-hmm. So you want to try and get some representation of that. Mm-hmm. The other thing to think about when you're setting up your soil samples is, and it reminded me of this because a lot of people farm different on the hill as they do in the valley, but they might be pulling one composite sample, and that's not giving them the best representation to make good management decisions.
Mm-hmm. So again, you really want to pull the sample with how you would farm it.
Right.
So if you're farming differently, then you need to have that sample correspond to where you're farming differently.
Yes.
So outdated methodology a little bit on some of the older ones. We don't, that's for the baseline and such. Anything else to go through on those?
One thing, we know people have had their soils reclassified because they've improved them. when I went to school, I was taught that it takes however many millions of years to create an inch of soil. Wrong. I did it even I don't farm, but I have a small scale garden. And because I was running chickens through it, had cover crop, laying down the cover crop, I was using no fertilizers, no chemicals at all whatsoever. those chickens were able to create like 3 inches of soil. So I have a heavy black clay right over limestone. And that makes a huge difference in plant growth where I'm at.
Yeah.
So things can change over time. And as you improve your soil, you can even have your soil reclassified into a much better soil type.
Yeah. And because that essentially drives the productivity index or the CSR or whatever the state related thing is, and determines whether you have a, class A, class B, class C soil, which directly correlates to the value of land. Pretty much, today productivity index here in Illinois or CSR in Iowa drives the price per acre.
Value.
If it's a class A versus class B, it's an instant,
right?
$3,000 to $4,000 an acre difference. And, we're still looking at, these soil tests from 50 years ago.
Right.
To make those determinations. And there's vast differences between the last 50 years of farming. What's happened?
Oh, yeah.
They've degraded, or maybe not degraded.
Right.
Or maybe slight improvement. So how do you get it reclassified? I didn't even know you could do that.
Yeah, you have to beg your NRCS person to come out and do it, I think.
Yikes, that can be fun. So
depending on where you're at, it can be fun.
Yeah, exactly. We have covered a lot of ground, literally. What are some of the things that you hope farmers are going to take away from our discussions here?
Well, I was thinking about that while we were talking about this map and reclassifying your soil and building your soil. And, one, have a vision and a plan for your farm. Figure out how to implement that. Use all the tools available that you have, whether that's soil testing, tissue testing, whatever you can fit within your budget to do to get as much information as possible. Start it out right. Develop a plan to monitor it over time. And it's going to give you good management information, but it's also going to give you the confidence to know that what you're doing is working or what's not, and that you're really in touch with what's happening on your operation.
Plus, over time, then you can see the results and get that feedback to know when you're doing something that's different than the neighbors. That gives you that feedback, that assurance that you're doing the right thing, because when you're doing something different, your neighbors are not afraid to give you a fair dose of crap, right?
Right.
So that's a key. So it gives you, by looking at this, better way to measure what we're doing, and doing that over time can give you the confidence to make the right decisions and know that the decisions you've made are taking you in the right direction.
Yes. And there's a whole army of people out there that are willing to help understand these tests, make management decisions off of them. You need to find a trusted advisor, which I would recommend would be a farmer that's gone through all this before. I can help in any way I can, but I don't farm. So not one person can give you every single answer. You need like a trusted community of people around you to figure things out.
Very good point. Liz, what else should we have brought up that we haven't here? We've kind of covered everything, I feel.
Covered a lot on main test, yeah.
Well, I certainly appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
This has been great, and I hope that everyone that has listened to these videos and seen these examples gives you a better understanding of what the Haney Soil Test is and how you can utilize that on your farm. Allows you to confidently make good decisions in the future, and decisions that are not only going to impact your profitability this year and for your farming career, but also you got to think about the other people that are going to farm your land, whether it's family or not, after you're no longer here. Have you made it better for future generations? So these are ways that you can quantify those things and know that you're doing the right thing. And we certainly appreciate you taking the time to go through these and have a better understanding of your soil and your farm. And Liz, I sure thank you for your heart for farmers and for the knowledge that you have to share with others. And we really appreciate it. And we hope that everybody's more empowered to make better decisions here in the future.